live on the air. I'm Richard Saile.
This is wild.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lounge Time. I'm your host, Rich Saile, and on today's episode of 2026 Offseason Grades, we are grading the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I have some family members that are interested in how I grade this team. It won't be any different than how I've graded everybody. So, I assure you, I know that we have some Cowboy fans, two of my cousins we've had on in the past, Malachi Lawrence, who we've always had in the preseason open. They're all waiting to hear this grade. No worries. This is the episode. Without further ado, let's get into this episode. This is a team I've been waiting to talk about a little bit as I've gone on later in this series. And I will say this. I like what they did. But let's start with the free agency groups, because there was a bunch of moves that they did, not just from signings, but franchise tags, and a recent extension today, a couple hours ago, which we're going to talk about. So let's start with the free agency trades, extensions. Let's start there. Number one, they did trade for involving the Packers. No, they didn't get Micah Parsons back. That would have been bigger than the Myles Garrett trade. Okay. But they did get Rashawn Gary from the Green Bay Packers, which he's always been a player I've really liked. That I knew when he got drafted by Green Bay, he was going to be a rotational pass rusher, but now he goes to the Cowboys. They also got Kobe Durant, the cornerback from the Rams. They got PJ Locke, safety Jalen Thompson to bolster their secondary, which they needed to address their pass rush. They needed to get a better secondary. And Kobe Durant is pretty good. If you remember the Rams, he had a very solid playoff run. And he actually had a really good game against Chicago, which that's good for the Cowboys, that they got somebody that was playing well in the playoffs. Hopefully he fits into their defense, which leads me to their biggest move, which was new defensive coordinator Christian Parker from the Vic Fangio tree within the division. That is a good move, especially since the Fangio defense has done really well within NFL circles. I am interested to see how much of a jump they will make under a rookie defensive coordinator. I think we need to be reasonable with how much can this defense improve from the atrocity that they were last season, which I expect they will be better. But let's go. That's not even all the moves I've gone over yet, okay? They also lost Osa Digizua in free agency. He went to the 49ers. That is something that hurts them a little bit up front. And I know they're going from a 4-3 to a 3-4, which they need some of that strength to man the gaps, especially in the run defense. This is where I'm a little worried that they don't have as much depth. And losing Odigizua, yes, he fits better in a 4-3, which is where he's going to be really good with the Niners as far as schematics. But I look at the roster, they have two guys already that can stop the run and can be disruptive. One of those guys being an interior pass rusher, the other guy is a pure run stuffer, okay? And I'll go over that more with the roster. But I feel like they're missing that one nose tackle that Digizua was never going to fill. But they're just missing that. And I think it's going to hurt a little, especially in like nickel and dime sets where you do have a 4-down line, which, because the Cowboys are more of a 3-4 team, I think you'll see more of a package involving Quinnen Williams being that down line, the 3-down lineman, and then you're going to have your rotation of pass rushers with Malachi Lawrence, which I'll get into with the draft class, Rashawn Gary, Demarion Overshown, and Donovan Izaraku. I hope I said that name right. James Houston from Detroit. So you're going to have a lot of edge guys, and it's going to be a good rotation, which I'll get to when we go to the roster. They did place the franchise tag on George Pickens. I think we expected that, especially after the season he had last year. And Javonte Williams got an extension, 3 years, $24 million. Not a bad extension as far as math. He did really solid. If you remember Brian Schottenheimer, he did run the ball at times when they weren't behind like crazy. And Javonte Williams fits into what Schottenheimer's always been, especially from the old days with Marty Schottenheimer. He used to be a run, pound the rock team where they would run. You can go back to his days with the Cleveland Browns, with Ernest Biner. Okay, you can go back to the days with Kansas City when he had Marcus Allen and the Chargers with LaDainian Tomlinson. Like, those Schottenheimer teams were always run-heavy teams. Even Brian's younger days with the Jets when they had Sean Green and LaDainian Tomlinson. Yes, I remember those teams. So those teams would always run. Even Seattle a little bit when he was there. They were more throw-heavy. But he's always been a run coordinator where he prioritizes running the ball, which Javonte Williams, that is a good signing. It's not a lot. It's a good extension, I would say. Their draft class. I actually like the beginning of this draft class. And I'm going to say Caleb Downs for a little bit because I have a lot to say in a good way. Malachi Lawrence, who I mentioned a few moments ago, he was talked about as being a first-round pick. He was one of the biggest risers of the draft leading into the draft night. I like that he's going to be a stand-up rusher in this scheme, especially when you have Gary on the other side and then you have good rotation. I don't think that from the return they got from Parsons, and I'm going to save that, I don't think Malachi Lawrence is going to be Micah Parsons. I think that's fair as far as what the Cowboys expect. I think they want to be more of a team that we're going to throw a bunch of different edge rushers and then rotations to where we have guys healthy for snaps and rotate, confuse offensive tackles, and then what they're going to do is they're going to play run first and then let those pass rushers work upfield, get to the quarterback, get the combination of speed, and then find a way to get there, fly the ball, which this defense needs to be better at, not just in the secondary, but in the pass rush. And Malachi Lawrence is a guy that was very good at Central Florida. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that can consistently get double-digit sacks and the constant attention like Micah Parsons. And I'm going to compare this for a minute because I think these teams are very similar and their owners were very good friends. The Cowboys remind me a little bit of what the Raiders were when Khalil Mack got traded, because Khalil Mack wanted a huge contract. He won Defensive Player of the Year. He was clearly one of the best edge rushers in football. And I remember when the Raiders traded Khalil Mack for 3 first-round picks to the Bears, and everybody going, what are they doing? And they used it on Cleveland Farrell, who never became anything. Josh Jacobs was solid. And then Jonathan Abram, who he didn't pan out well. The Cowboys, I would say their draft class was better from what they did get the additional first-round picks on. Now, I don't think that Malachi Lawrence is going to replace the impact Parsons had. Rashawn Gary's nice. I want to see how he does this season. He's a guy I think that will be somewhere in the 7.5 to 9 sack range, especially since I think the Fangio scheme will make him unlock his capabilities as a pass rusher. Quinnen Williams being an interior disruptor and a run defender, I think that's going to help a lot which I'm going to get to him in a moment. But I would say the Cowboys draft class did better as far as what they were able to get than what the Raiders were able to do for Khalil Mack. I do see similarities as far as they can't replace the total impact that those guys that they traded away did. Meaning the Raiders trading Khalil Mack and the Cowboys trading Parsons. They never replaced the production, but they tried to fill multiple holes, which Dallas did, but again, it all depends on how it pans out. And we're going to see how Malachi Lawrence does as a pro, but I think it's fair to say that he's not going to be the guy that is the replacement for Micah Parsons. Because last year, they needed an edge rusher. And they did a good job filling out the depth, getting multiple pass rushers, and this offseason. I just think we need to be realistic as far as expectations. Now, Caleb Downs. Getting him at 11 is shocking as far as how they were able to get him. Because I was watching the draft live and I was saying to myself, the Giants have 2 first-round picks and they're going to take Caleb Downs right before the Cowboys. And this is going to be the classic Jerry Jones theme post-Jimmy Johnson where he once again misses on all these big-name players that end up being great. And I'm saying to myself, watch the Giants take Caleb Downs. No, they took Francis Mauigoa, and I'm like, oh man, Dallas is taking Caleb Downs. It's over. This is arguably the best player in the draft. Yes, I can make an argument Caleb Downs is better than Jeremiah Love, Mendoza, Arvell Reese, David Bailey. I can make that argument. Caleb Downs, to me, is... He's so versatile. Like, he's one of those rare safeties that can play. He can play nickel. He can play deep safety. He can tackle. He is great in the return game. I don't think we've seen a safety do all of this. And again, this is my lifetime. I'm getting, and I'm not going to say he's Ed Reed, but he has some traits where it reminds me a little bit of how the Ravens use Ed Reed a little bit. Meaning, Ed Reed played special teams. He flew all over the field a little bit. And again, I'm not saying he's Ed Reed, but there's similar ways I see it with how he was used in college and then how he was used early before they kept him as a deep safety and stopped letting him play special teams. Caleb Downs is, to me, going to be the next great safety in the league that we see for the next 10 years. This is how good he's going to be. Because he can do so many things. You can line him up at nickel. You can do so many different things. And the range that he's able to have as a safety is phenomenal. I think he's actually got a chance to maybe be a defensive player of the year in this league one day. I really do. I don't think you're going to see Dallas play much in special teams. I would like to see if they do give it a try for like a year or two. I don't think they will. But he's got the capability where he did have some returns at Ohio State where they were big returns on punts. Not more so on kicks, but more on punt returns. But Ed Reed was a little bit like that on punt returns to a degree too, if you remember his early Ravens days. But I think this is the next great safety. And I've seen a good amount of safeties in the years I've been watching. I see a little Earl Thomas. I see a little Ed Reed at times. I don't want to say Troy Polamalu because Troy Polamalu was a different way where he time gaps and he acrobatically flew over. I don't see that, but I see some little snippets of it. But I think Caleb Downs at 11, they might have got the best player in the draft, and they needed safety badly. And he's going to fix so many holes within that defense. That's going to be such a great tool for Christian Parker to have on that defense. It's going to be so great for him. Quinnen Williams extension today. This is the biggest news recently. Now let's go over their numbers because I'm trying to get it, and it's a lot of money guaranteed over 3 years. And I'm going to pull the terms up right now as we're doing this. So just a few hours ago, he got 3 years, $105.9 million extension, almost 106, with $101 million guaranteed, $63.35 million due at signing. This is a lot because he is solid, but he's not Parsons. Now, the reason I want to talk Quinnen Williams first before I go into Parsons again. Quinnen Williams is very good. He does fit their scheme better. But he's not a guy that I think the money deserves compared to what you should have paid Micah Parsons. I don't think that at all. Okay? But now you have Dak, Lamb, and now Quinnen Williams eating up a lot of your cap over 3 years. I don't know if I like that for them. I don't know if I like that because you could have did the same move with Parsons and still were able to work your way at filling the roster. But I understand that they needed to fill multiple needs. I still think you should have paid Parsons more of that contract and more for Parsons than you did for Quinnen Williams. I think you overpaid a lot here. I do. I understand he's really good, but I don't know if he has had the production that's given him that many numbers. Let's go to the draft class. So we talked about Caleb Downs. We talked about Malachi Lawrence. Jayshon Barham from Michigan in the 3rd round. That's a good pick. Okay, Devin Moore from Florida. Tall corner, fast. This is a good pick. They need some corner depth on this team. I like that a lot. LT Overton, he's going to be a better fit for the scheme. I don't think he's going to start right away, but I would not be surprised if later in the season he may be that 3-tech as far as being the opposite of 3-4 defensive end with Quinnen Williams, and then you have the nose tackle maybe being Kenny Clark at some point. I could see that possibly being a rotation that they do experiment with, depending on how far he is and how he progresses in development. And then Anthony Smith, the wide receiver from East Carolina. I don't know much. I mean, again, that's kind of just a roll of the dice. But the Cowboys in the 4th round, I really like what they did. Drew Shelton from Penn State, that's good offensive tackle depth. Let's go into the depth chart before I circle back to Micah Parsons. But overall, I think they overpaid for Quinnen Williams on that extension. And he's very good, but I don't think he's had the numbers to warrant that extension for what this Cowboys defense needs to be. And what they could fill and what they need to fill. Let's go to their roster. Offensively, we know they're going to be big time, okay? Their wide receiver 3, yes, they have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, MVS. Cavante Turbin's a return specialist. Jonathan Mingo's a guy I liked from Ole Miss, and I know they got him from Carolina, I want to say last year. Can he be a 3 over Flournoy? No, but he might be a 4 in certain 4-wide packages. And it's not a great receiver room, but it's not awful. Because they got 2 guys that could be number 1s on most teams in the league. Okay? Now, Jake Ferguson, he's been a solid tight end. Schoonmaker's more of a blocker. Okay? The offensive line is not the old days of Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin. Not that offensive line. This is solid. Like, it's good. Like, Tyler Guyton's not bad. Tyler Smith's a good left guard. Tyler Booker's not bad at right guard. Terrence Steele is a good right tackle. They're not the mid-2010s Cowboys offensive line. They're not that. But they're good. Okay, they can get the job done. I think they can definitely be a good run-blocking team. Decent at pass protection. I do believe, though, that they're going to be more... I wouldn't say more balanced just yet because I do see them throwing a little bit more than they are running. But it would be interesting to see if they can be balanced, where their best teams have always been. A la 2014, 2016. Could I argue 22 being a little balanced? No, because they did throw a little more in 22, because that's when Zeke was on the tail end of his prime in Dallas. But I think this offense is going to put numbers up once again. I think you're going to see some more balance. We saw some games where they ran more. We saw some games where they threw more. It will depend on matchups. But this offensive line, Jaden Blue is the running back 2 behind Javonte Williams. This is going to be a team that has so many guys that can be productive with the ball in their hands. They're going to score. It's just the matchups that they're given is what I'm interested to see. And how often will Schottenheimer be balanced with this group? Because they have a lot of guys that can be great with the ball in their hands, running and catching the ball. Defense. This is really where I'm going to spend most of my time on. I think their secondary is better. I'm going to start there first because Kobe Durant, Deron Bland, and then Caleb Downs is your nickel with Devin Moore and Shervon Revel Jr. That's a good secondary. Malik Hooker, and then you have Jalen Thompson as your safeties with Marquise Bell being the backup safety with PJ Locke. But Caleb Downs being a nickel who can play safety. Like, this secondary to me is really good now. Like, I think it's solid. I think it's an above average secondary, leaning towards the top 10. I think there's teams we haven't covered that are really good that I've graded, but I haven't recorded yet. But I like what they did. So this secondary to me has a lot of size, very good coverage guys. Bland is the one where he gambles a little bit more. Kobe Durant's got the size, which is good. Their edge rushing group, I would say, is deeper than people will give it credit for. I really think that with Gary, DeMarion Overshown being an inside backer, okay, you have Jayshawn Barham, I think was an edge of Michigan for a little. Yeah, he was an edge of Michigan. James Houston was an edge in Detroit. Okay, Jonathan Bullard. LT Overton we talked about. Donovan Ezraku, who they drafted not too long ago. This is a very good edge group. They just need to produce. And it's good to have a really deep edge rushing group. That's actually luxury because the more pass rushers you can throw at teams, you can get pass rush, you can get third and longs, which is what that defense needs. Third and longs to get stops and let those guys work upfield to the quarterback. D. Winters at inside linebacker, solid, but the D-line is a little bit more of my concern. The three guys up front. Williams, just because he hasn't had a crazy disruptive season. Kenny Clark, good run stuffer. Otito Obana, I'm hoping I pronounced that name right. But Quinnen Williams, and again, I'm going to go by the stats numbers. I just want to make sure I have the right numbers I'm looking at. Like, he had 1 year with the Jets where he had 12 sacks. And he's only really had 1 year where he's had double-digit sacks. He hasn't been there as far as production since that 2022 year. But he had 3 forced fumbles last year before he went to the Cowboys, which I read it right. So, again, I just think he is not productive as far as the pass rush, but he's a good run defender, which is what they need. So, again, I do like what the Cowboys have up front. I just don't think it's their strong suit compared to what they have in total from a secondary linebacker group. But again, maybe Quinnen Williams does get 10 sacks. Maybe he rewards them really well over 3 years. I just don't think he's deserved that much when you compare to what you lost with Micah Parsons, because who was a guy that required defense's attention, right? Where offensive coordinator's attention, where defenses had a key on him. And I don't think Lawrence is going to have that impact that Parsons had. And I know Micah Parsons was not great against the run. He did do great as far as rushing the passer. But sometimes if you have that collective group that replaces it, that's where it can work. I don't know if they have that complete yet. They have some nice pieces, but I don't know if they have the collective group to replace what one guy can do in Micah Parsons. So that's where I'm saying that I don't think they didn't do great as replacing the total impact that Parsons had, but they did do really well as far as what they were able to get back for them to help improve the roster itself, which I understand it from there. But do not think Malachi Lawrence, Rashawn Gary, one of those guys is going to be your next Micah Parsons. That ain't going to happen. The Raiders took a while before they found Max Crosby, where he finally broke out in 2019, 2020, I want to say. One of those years. Let's go to their schedule. Game 1, they open up at the Giants. Now, they've owned the Giants in recent memory, and I got some Giants fans watching. Don't worry, your team is going to be in the grade books by Wednesday or Thursday. I'm going to have it out. I don't think they're going to win at the Giants this year. I don't think so. They have a good chance to. I don't think they will because they've got a little holes to fill. And again, I'll talk about the Giants in their episode. I'm going to say that's a loss in MetLife, game 1. Home for Washington, that's a win. This one, home for the Ravens, which this one, I want to look this up for a minute because let me double check this. This game is in, and I want to make sure it's right. I don't want to just say it just because I'm wrong. This is in Brazil. Okay. I wanted to double check this. I was going to say it was in Brazil. I wasn't sure. I'm going to confirm that. I did. So Ravens in Brazil on the 27th, 4:25 primetime slot. I'm going to say that's a loss. I don't think Dallas can beat Baltimore. 1-2. At Houston, I'm going 1-3. Thursday night at home against Tampa. I'm going to say that's a win. In Green Bay. On a Sunday night, too, where both of these teams tied. I think they beat Green Bay in Green Bay. I'm going to say 3-3. At Philadelphia on a Monday night, 3-4. Cardinals at home, 4-4. At the Colts, 5-4. I think the Colts are just all right. Home for the Niners, 6-4. Home for the Titans, 7-4. Home for the Eagles on a Thursday. Oh, Thanksgiving afternoon, 8-4. The Cowboys are riding high going into December. And then we got the last 5 games. At Seattle's a loss, 8-5. At the Rams, 8-6. Home for the Jaguars, 9-6. Home for the Giants, 10-6. At Washington. And this could be, Washington will play spoiler. Because they're now a little better now that they got Stephon Diggs. I think Cowboys win in Washington. I'm going to say 11-6 for the Cowboys. And I think this team has a real chance to make the playoffs in an NFC that I think from 6 to 11, you could argue a couple different teams. I really like that, the way that they address their defense. I believe they can score. My only issue with them is, can they make that leap where they can go far in the playoffs? I don't know if they've done enough there, which leads me to my offseason grade. I wanted to go B+ initially, but I had to backtrack and say, I don't think they made another move where I was like, okay, I could put him to B+. So I'm going to land at a B. Because they did really good addressing the defense. That's most important. I do think the Quinnen Williams extension is a little shaky. Their offensive line depth is okay. And I just feel that this group, again, I have to see it with the defense. Can they just be average? Above average? That's where I would say, okay, that's where they can be successful. And I think they'll be good, but they need to make a jump at least to be average. And I got to see with a new defensive coordinator. So I'm going to land at a B for the Dallas Cowboys. So that's where I'm going to net out as far as the Cowboys 2026 offseason grade. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so that way you guys can get all the latest content as we move into the last third of NFL teams with the offseason grade series. We are looking to finish this by August in time for the preseason show where I will give my playoff teams, my Super Bowl 61 prediction and winner. You don't want to miss that episode late in August, early September. You can also follow me at LoungeTimePod on X. Yes, I've been tweeting a little bit, and I had one tweet that Chargers fans didn't like. I won't elaborate what it was. I'll let that offseason grade episode talk for itself, but I will be tweeting during Patriots games. I'll be tweeting during some NFL preseason action, depending on what I watch. And if you have a question for the show, feel free to send it over, and I'll answer it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Lounge Time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I'll see you guys in the next episode where we continue more 2026 offseason grades.